thank you everybody for joining. This is going to be a great conversation around really trying to support that pipeline of diverse talent, not only in New York City, but throughout the country and abroad. I have 3 great leaders joining us here to have this conversation with that are really doing the work that needs to be done in this space. Today, I'm joined by Geraldine Rodriguez, the co-founder and CEO of the Knowledge House, Forbes 30 Under 30 acknowledgement. Shout out to you for that. Knowledge House is a program that is building the pipeline for underserved neighborhoods by equipping young people with the tech skills, training, and placement. Dante Wade, new director of National Business Solutions at Scholas. For those of you who are familiar with Scholas in New York City, they have other chapters as well, doing great work to get people the skills in software, cyber, and IT, tuition free. And Jackie Bellando, program director at CUNY Tech Prep, manages the CUNY Tech Prep team on the ground and co-leads its strategic growth efforts. Also a fellow TC alum. Shout out to TC. So I really want to have a conversation about not only the work that goes into building out these pipelines, feeding these pipelines, getting them through from training, enrollment, training, and then placement, right? Which I know was a big hurdle. And then, our employers becoming more open-minded about taking people from your track, because I've had conversations with them. So that'll come up. But I would like to know, since you're all in a similar space of tech training, supporting for on-demand 21st century skills, what is unique about your approach with your programs? What skills tracks do you currently train for? Maybe what are some tracks that you might be training for in the future? Geraldine, since you're next to me on the screen, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be in the room with everyone here. So at the Knowledge House, our mission is to empower and sustain a talent pipeline of technologists coming from low-income communities. We are headquartered in the Bronx, and we specialize in code and design job training. So what makes us different from other organizations is that we do serve K through 12 youth and adult job seekers. For us, that's our approach to fix this leaky pipeline and to bridge the school to work gap. And the training areas we specialize in is web development, where our job seekers learn JavaScript, data engineering, where they learn Python programming, and we just launched a cyber and networking security track. For the high school students, they actually receive a crash course in everything from coding, UX, UI, graphic design, and we expose them to college and non-college pathways into tech careers. So that makes us different. We focus on more software engineering and design skills, and we serve both populations.
Awesome. Thank you. I didn't know you did the K-12. That's interesting. That's great. Good to know. Dante, take it away.
Perfect. And thank you so much for having me, Abran. So I would say Scholas is a national workforce development organization that teaches, trains, and certifies adults in the field of information technology. So currently we have copious amounts of training tracks, including IT support, cybersecurity, software engineering, Java development, and we just started an AWS Restart program in collaboration with Amazon Web Services around late last year as well. So one thing that we do that's a bit unique, not only are our services free to our learners, but as well as tech development training, 1 day a week, we have professional development training as well. So our candidates could be well-versed in their 60-second pitch, interviewing, resume building, and LinkedIn creation as well. And an additional value add that Scholas does is once people graduate from our course, they get 2 years of wraparound services with their career coaching, as well as the business solutions team, which assists them with finding employment after the course.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought that up, because in the conversations that I've had with employers, they're like, well, if they're skipping college, do they have the soft skills? Do they have the skills to interview and other things, those intangibles? But within the matriculated enrollment track, we have Jackie here from CUNY. Jackie, please tell us about the CUNY Tech Prep program.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So CTP, as we call ourselves, we're a full year, full stack JavaScript development program. We also recently added a data science track in Python, specifically for CUNY students across the 11 undergraduate or senior colleges. So I think what makes us unique is we're serving students across CUNY, and those folks are, making community with other students that they probably wouldn't have met otherwise. It's also at no cost to students. We started through the New York City Tech Talent Pipeline, an initiative started by Mayor de Blasio about 7 years ago, I believe. And kind of, I think, similar to things that Geraldine and Dante mentioned, we also provide career coaching services to students, working on that soft skill that we really think is critical to pairing with the tech skills that students need to land often their first job in tech coming out of school. And we also offer a lot of industry mentorship. We offer mock technical interviews like whiteboarding, which we have found is a really important tangible piece of practice that increases chances of students landing a job quicker when they land or when they finish our program.
Thank you. All very important work. I personally had a chance, I put together a hackathon, and we had teams from the Knowledge House and Scholas place 1 and 2 in that hackathon. So it was super impressive. Had a chance to meet them. But then what was surprising to me, now this happened during the pandemic where, usually hackathons are in person. So this was a virtual hackathon. I met people in your cohorts from Venezuela, from all over the world and all over the country, where I thought you were just local programs. So has the shift changed because of the pandemic and is now, widening with your reach, or are they more local in scope? And I'll let anyone, kind of take it here.
I'm happy to start. So for us, our programs are local still, but since COVID, we have had students, if they had to move, then they moved to Philly, for example, and we are finding that a lot of our employer partners, they were hiring and are still hiring remote technologists. So we have become a little flexible, but the requirement for our program is that you must be an NYC resident, must make less than $50,000, though this year we've started expanding. And so for the next cycle, we will be recruiting job seekers in Atlanta, Georgia, Los Angeles, California, and Newark, New Jersey. And while we expect, those local residents might shift a little bit, we expect them to live and pay their taxes in those cities. But, moving forward, we might be moving into a hybrid program model. So to your question, we can be more flexible, right? That is the benefits of operating during COVID. If the employers are hiring remote technologists and we can serve students anywhere, what's important is that we are serving the neighborhoods that have the most need. So that's priority for us, but we have been flexible a little bit.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And I could parlay off Geraldin's point. First thing, I want to say shout out to Newark, New Jersey. I heard you guys are going to be looking for some candidates out there. That's the hometown. But Abran, we've actually been able to expand during this time period, because when we first started our training, it was all in person. But with the shift in virtual learning and virtual interactions in 2020, we were actually able to expand and bring in more learners than we did when it was in-person interaction. And as well as expanding, we combine sources with our various sites around the country. So for example, the candidate you were talking about from Venezuela, he was in a class with candidates from the Washington, D.C. area and the Newark, New Jersey area. And they were all in that way, and they were able to learn together. So we've actually been able to expand our reach. And while we're still local and we look for people who are within the same state as our training course, you don't necessarily have to be in the same city anymore because you don't have to commute to the office.
Got it. Jackie, are you a 5-borough focus, or do you touch Jersey, Yonkers, Long Island, other places as well?
Yeah. Well, right now we are exclusively, with CUNY students who are living in mostly the 5 boroughs. I think CUNY is in many ways a microcosm of the city.
Yes.
So we have students across the 5 boroughs, including all the 11 senior colleges we have a history of working with. But we do have plans to make a lot of more of our material public online. We do have the intention of not just serving our fellows that get into the program, but all of CUNY as a whole, and hopefully more folks outside of CUNY in the future too. So yeah, awesome. We'll see. But that's where it is now.
I think that'd be a great resource for a lot of people who want to at least dip their toe into it before they fully enroll.
Exactly.
See if they have an interest in it for sure. So I don't want to throw hardballs yet, but I do want to get into some of the work that I've experienced in this space where I do meet with employers and ask them why aren't they, or what makes them hire from these tracks. And what you all are doing is truly social impact work. And how do you not convey it to an employer that it's just social impact, that it's charity to pluck people from your cohorts, that they're qualified talent? And are you seeing that? Do they just look at it as like, oh, well, if we have a internship opportunity to show some charity work, then we'll take someone from your cohort? Or how do you convey to them that, no, these people are skilled and qualified?
So for us at the Knowledge House, our approach is to put industry professionals in front of our students, because then they get to see firsthand what the quality of talent looks like. And for us, most of our students coming from the South Bronx, where it's a borough, that's known for pioneering salsa, hip hop, etc. We really need to show the world these digital natives, especially, can be tech producers, not only tech consumers. And I actually learned from Scholas when we first started that the best way to secure employer partners is to start with volunteering. And I think traditionally through CSR or marketing, these companies are having their employees do community service, do mentorship, and they might see that as a charity case, but we use it to our advantage so that they see talent that is literally unresistible. We do have employer partners that commit to an internship first. And then when we see those internships convert to full-time engineering roles and we share those stories, those are proof points, right? We do find that a lot of startups are flexible enough with their budgets. They have more capacity to groom entry-level talent. And they are the ones taking on interns, apprentices, and employees without degrees. And the big Fortune 100 companies are slowly getting there. A lot of them have now removed that bachelor's in computer science requirement, but it does not mean yet that they are, partnering with nonprofits only to secure entry-level talent. They are still, having their partnerships with the Ivy League schools, with Stanford, with MIT. I don't see that going away anywhere anytime soon. But as long as nonprofits like the Knowledge House, Scholas, and others keep showing up with talent that doesn't have a college degree and they can do the work, then more doors will open up for us.
For sure. Yeah, I think what I've seen is that there's more roles than talent that you can pluck from those top tier universities, and you do have to look elsewhere to fill up the talent pool. The way that the scale is skewed at the moment, for sure.
And I think Jerelyn made a really, really good point in regards to the volunteering aspect and being able to bring companies in to actually see and interact with the candidates, because that's exactly what you have to do sometimes. They have the skill set. We're training them for the skill set. They just need a stage to present it. And once employers are able to see the talent, a lot of the time they get really serious about engaging with the talent moving forward. And I'd say one other thing that's really important is being intentional about how we speak about the talent and not speaking from a deficit language point of view. So not saying, overlooked, impoverished, underserved communities. No, these are technical candidates who have the skills and the training necessary to get the job done. So it's important on our end that we're intentional about how we speak about the talent. And I would say the last thing is making sure that we have a robust screening process to ensure that companies know we're serious about the talent we're presenting. And when I say a robust screening process, if I'm presenting an opportunity to my talent pool, just because you say you're interested doesn't mean you're going to be put in front of the employer. Your resume has to be together. You have to know all of the details of the job that you're going into. And that just makes a more streamlined process where the employer knows how serious we take it, and they'll want to come back for more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at CUNY Tech Prep, we do very similar things in terms of the volunteering aspect. I think, honestly, it was organizations like yours that I think, spearheaded those ideas. The fact that, you know, get people in front of your students to show them that, you know, this is talent being trained in the same skills that other folks are being trained for. And I think at CUNY we're in a unique spot that our students are getting degrees, but a lot of them are, again, microcosm of New York City, career changers themselves, or, you know, like this is their first degree at kind of an older than the typical average undergrad age that they're coming into us at. And yeah, I think that language piece is also just a really big deal. I've had companies come in and say, quote, like, why should we take a chance on CUNY? I think a lot of the bias against CUNY is, like one of y'all said, you know, it's these companies are used to hiring exclusively from like deemed elite private colleges, and there's a little bit of bias against private schools, which I think has a whole lot of problematic undertones in itself. But when we, you know, we frame it around language that we are, like Dante said too, have a pretty industry focused or industry informed process of getting students in. Students literally do an online application, a coding challenge, and then an interview, purposely set up like industry does it, so that they kind of know already going into the program, this is what we can expect when we go out and apply to a job later.
Yeah, my argument was always, you know, if they can pass your engineering test, it doesn't matter where they come from. You know, it's let the numbers speak for themselves. So segueing into that next question, what barriers are you running up against in your space? Are there issues of bias, ageism, self-selecting, you know, with these employers? Or, you know, is it not just on the employer side? Is it on the training side? Is it convincing people to enroll because they're making that career transition and not sure of the prospects coming out of it? Are you seeing, you know, what are the challenges in your space?
That's a really good question. And ironically, the first thing that comes to mind actually comes on the training side as opposed to the employer side. Because one thing to note is a lot of the people that come within our program, they're new to IT. They don't have any tech experience. They don't have a technical education other than for Scholas. So you notice a lot of imposter syndrome and some of our candidates. And we may share a position, but they may say, I don't feel qualified. And because they don't feel qualified for it, they may not engage with us as much as we would like for them to do. But that's definitely a barrier that we notice, people jumping into a new industry with the nerves that come with it. That's the first thing that comes to mind for
me. That damn imposter syndrome.
I'll share two, and one is related to what Dante just said. And Dante also mentioned that, you know, going virtual allowed for Scholas to access more trainees. For us, we saw an increase in demand. We saw like a drastic increase. But on the training side, what we are dealing with now is a lot of the applicants came to us just lacking basic web fluency and digital literacy skills. So while in the past 2 years, we've seen applications to our program almost quadruple, we haven't been able to select all of those students that want the program. And so we're now investing in like, how do we just spread digital literacy across the Bronx to make sure that potential applicants are ready to just persist through our admissions process and then be ready for the 1-year-long program. So we're trying to work with local community groups to upskill locally and make sure that just everyone has an opportunity to participate in the future of work. I'd say on the employment side, we are still seeing hiring bias, even though things are getting a little better. You know, so at the Knowledge House, most of our students are Black and brown, mostly women, but there is a sliver of students that are white or Asian, identify as low income. And you see that when they are doing their job search and they are getting picked up for jobs faster than our other like Black female students, for example. And so this year we tried something called the resume book, where we compiled everyone's resume, but we crossed out their names. And then we sent it to our employer network. And when the resume book was used for job matching, you see the employers picking up the Black females instead of the Asian students. And so that's what's interesting. I think we have to do more as a workforce development sector to reduce hiring bias, because companies are still learning, right? And so doing things like sharing promising practices about these innovative tools, and standardizing them and just helping companies disrupt their traditional hiring practices is going to be an ongoing challenge. But if we all work together, we can accelerate this process. So those are two challenges now for us.
Wow. You should publish that little study that you created and discovered. That would enlighten a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jerelyn. What was I gonna say? Wow, I just had a bit of a brain fart there. Oh, so with us at CUNY, I think in addition to the biases that y'all already discussing on employer and the imposter syndrome side, imposter syndrome is the first word I had underlined, bolded for our students too. A big part of CUNY though is a lot of students are just working multiple jobs on top of school. So they have just a lot of things going on in their lives that kind of similarly to how a technical, lack of fundamental skills coming into a program could be a burden. Folks that, just can't afford to do a training program on top of a job they need to support themselves and to support their families can be a huge challenge. I know there's been folks that have discussed adding stipends to programs like ours so that students can literally afford to prioritize training and job searching in addition to
shout out to Pursuit. They do a stipend.
Yeah, love that. So I see that model being very important possibly for folks like us moving forward.
I mean, it's needed for some, for sure, that have to deal with other circumstances. And to be honest, I've encountered some folks that have turned down programs like your all's because they were like, I can't spend 40 hours in a boot camp if I have work and everything else. So the flexibility that some of these programs offer is appreciated by that population as well, for sure. Companies continuously ask me, we're getting some great audience questions, so I'll get to those soon for sure. But companies across the country continuously ask me, how can they diversify their talent pipelines? Are you running into that as well? And what recommendations would you offer to those companies other than just hiring from you all? But what are some strategies to those Fortune 100, 500, and even startups that are, they're passionate about the work and they're like, look, we want to support, but where we find diverse talent and how do we attract more diverse talent to our company to let them know that our work culture will embrace them? Because I've had companies in Colorado reach out and candidates like, look, I don't want to be the only person of color there. I don't know if I'll feel comfortable there, even though they do want to hire me. So what are some steps maybe that you've recommended to employers about diversifying the talent pipeline and making them feel comfortable?
So I would say in regards to diversifying the talent pipeline, it's really switching up the avenues of which they search for talent. So whether they're working with organizations such as ours or going to a HBCU or going to high schools to begin speaking to talent at that age, that's one avenue. But one thing that I would also say companies have to take a hard look at is who's already at the company that can be that role model or that person that this diverse talent can see themselves and identify with. Because just like you said, if a candidate comes in and they're not comfortable with a job, yeah, you may have hired the diverse talent, but the diverse talent isn't staying. And you want people to stay. And one huge component of people being able to stay at an organization is seeing people in higher up positions that can identify with them. It's something that they can strive to and see themselves in doing.
That's a great point. They might see them as individual contributors, but not in leadership roles.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things I was going to say. Putting people of color, queer folks, differently able folks, anyone that really just isn't in that traditionally, kind of usually white cis male head box, that we see leaders in, it's really important.
Yes.
You know, interrogating why those folks aren't on your leadership boards, you know, leading companies, super important, because our candidates are going to look at that and it's going to bring up the questions that y'all are bringing up. Something really simple that like I think is often overlooked, you know, and especially in these days when DEI, you know, is kind of like that buzzword that hopefully, you know, isn't just this momentary thing, but something that lasts, is, you know, making sure that DEI efforts are part of a human resources department rather than just this like one-off program that you're doing so you look good, right? Like this should be an investment in talent that is continuous and not just a one-off thing to make you feel like you're doing the right thing as a company. Like this is investment in talent, just like any of your other talent that should go through HR. And the same thing, the last thing I'll say is, you know, paying people a competitive living wage across the company, right? That's what, you know, obviously like we want to see people that, you know, look like our students in these companies, but even more so, people want to live, you know, with a living wage, with affirming benefits. ERGs are like way to, I think, like
Super
show
important.
that, yeah, and paying the leaders that run the ERGs, that's like a big thing too, ideally, right? And that extra labor that often it's the people of color putting in at the companies to run the ERGs that are,
because then it ends up as free labor. It's like, oh, you want to do the ERG, run it for me for free.
Exactly. So I think there's like a lot of the right steps in the right direction, but there's ways to really affirm that work being done so that it's not just like this one time to like make people think, okay, we're doing the job, it's a check mark. No, like this is a continuous process of making your work more just and equitable for people.
Absolutely. Not just checking off a box, for sure. I'm going to dive right into audience questions. They are filling up. The first one is for you, Jerelyn. 7 years into your mission, what impact data can you share about the work that the Knowledge House is doing?
Yeah, so I did enter this in the chat, but on October 15th, we are 7 years old. So we're celebrating 7 years this month. Thank you. And after 7 years, we have reached a lot of learners. 3 out of 4 of our graduates have gotten their first job in tech because of our programs. But we're really excited because despite the pandemic, the last graduating class had 95% job placement. And so we are so excited. The average salary for that class was about $80K. And folks are working at Red Hat, Citibank, ClassPass, Optimove, like a mix of startups, Fortune 100 companies. So we're excited because ever since COVID, we made our job training programs longer and it's proving to work. Like we just have more time to provide more rigorous content and also more time to work with employers. And we're seeing the benefits of that. So we have served about 500 adults in the job training programs, but then again, that digital literacy is so important. And of course, we have the K through 12 program. So in total, we've served about 2,000 people. So we're excited about growing and expanding to other cities.
Well, you're not a national organization. You are, you know, you're running essentially a nonprofit startup from the ground up. So really hats off to you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
To make that progress for sure. Marvin is asking, are there free, inexpensive, subsidized programs or learning platforms for adult small business owners or, you know, tech students and entrepreneurs? Are there places for entrepreneurs, not necessarily for the employee track, that are deeply interested in needing to grow these skills to develop their businesses?
That's a really good question. And I appreciate that question because that's a conversation that we've had internally at Scholas around how do we capture data for our candidates that don't want to go into the workforce, but they actually want to jump into entrepreneurship or starting up their own business. So one thing that we've been in conversations with Audible and Rutgers and Scholas Nork about is really having a training program for folks to come in and get trained up on their business. And in collaboration with Nork Venture Partners, they'll be able to pitch their business as well. So that's something that's still in the introductory level conversations about that. But that's definitely something that's on our radar because we're noticing a lot of people want to get into entrepreneurship as opposed to the standard employment 9-to-5 route.
I'll just add, so we have been very fortunate that because as a tech nonprofit, it was easier for us to transition to remote school and work since COVID. We've had the opportunity to share best practices with other nonprofits and entrepreneurs, right? Every small business has had to learn how to operate online. And so for the past 12 months, we've been partnering with the Business Outreach Center Network. They provide business services throughout New York City boroughs. And we are providing digital literacy training to entrepreneurs impacted by COVID. So we've been teaching small business owners how to use Zoom, right? How to use Calendly, how to set up Slack to engage with their employees, and how to sell their services online. So we continue to spread that to other entrepreneurs and also make the content available to parents, youth, because everyone is still in and out of this remote setting.
Awesome. This has been great. I do have a few more minutes. So I do, in this summit in general over the past years, and this year included, really has like a forward-looking lens on each of these industries and spaces. So in the next 5 to 10 years, where is this space going from a training standpoint? Is it all going to be automated? Are you going to be expanding tracks? Do you see more and more hiring from your space? I don't know if you've seen what the data is saying about hiring from non-traditional training tracks versus hiring from traditional university and college-based tracks, but any insight that you can give us about where this is headed for your industry?
So one thing I'll say is that as much as there's plenty of studies out there that show that, you know, a lot of jobs that can be automated are probably going to, you know, in the next decade. But the same studies often show that even more jobs are going to be created. A lot of specialized jobs around the technologies that are coming out. So with that said, I think not only do programs like ours really have to prioritize or just, you know, reimagine what we teach around those kind of specialized skills that the new jobs are going to require, but also just make sure, and I think like the work that Jerelyn and Dante are doing like are already centered so much on this, but so many of the jobs that are going to be replaced are jobs that are now low or mid-income jobs. So it's really, and the folks that hold those jobs are in, you know, positions that, you know, people of color, folks that just are, you know, are going to be hit the most by this loss of jobs. So not only should we be focused on what we're training, but focus really on like recruiting folks from that population that's being hit the most from having their jobs lost. So yeah, like I think that also said, you know, I don't think there's ever going to be a time, as long as there's human learners, that we don't need human teachers. I don't think AI is going to automate everything. Like I think a lot of us are still going to have jobs, and we're just going to need to, you know, find ways to use AI as a tool to better our work and not fully replace humans working with humans.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jackie. While we are paying attention to how like engineering roles will be automated, we're just seeing that with the acceleration of like digital transformation for businesses, there's a lot of like tech adjacent roles that are becoming more popular, you know? And so number one, so many cloud roles out there that are just growing, right? And what's great about those roles is there are so many certifications now, right? Like traditionally, you get a lot of these IT roles requiring the certification. And then for a program like us, we've been struggling to find like a Python certificate and a JavaScript certificate that all employers recognize. But now Google and Amazon have like cloud practitioner certifications, DevOps certifications. I mean, Google has a cert for everything. So we are seeing like a growth in those roles that are certified, and it makes like potential engineers, you know, more competitive because they have engineering skills that are demonstrated through a portfolio, and then they have like a cloud certification. But what we're also seeing is that now there's like an increase in these technical sales roles, right? So as companies are turning to cloud solutions, technology to improve their infrastructure, there are more sales folks, account managers, project managers that need to have some type of tech skills. So we're seeing these roles in like technical content writer or sales engineer, solutions engineer. And it's a good option for those job seekers at the Knowledge House, for example. They finish 1 year of code job training and they are still not 150% confident with their coding skills. Well, then they can go into a product role or a sales tech role, et cetera. So we're seeing like a lot of flexibility in the jobs out there, and that's exciting to us. So hopefully automation doesn't, stop that.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And I believe Jerelyn just made a really good point in regards to there are different things that are in demand currently. And from a candidate side, one thing I've noticed from a tech adjacency standpoint is project management. I'm starting to hear a lot more people be interested in the project management space and getting into that. But in regards to projections over the next 5 to 10 years, I really believe techs are going to be a lot more well-rounded moving forward than they have been in the past. And I say more well-rounded because we'll notice people who are coming into our IT support class, but they're saying, I want to get into systems administration at some point. Or they're coming into a cybersecurity class, but saying, I really want to get into project management, but this cybersecurity certification is going to help me as I move forward. So techs are definitely going to get more well-rounded. I see a even larger access to the education that's being offered as we move forward as well. And I'm pretty confident, I'm not going to say I'm the one that's going to do it, but I'm pretty confident that there is going to be some more automation in terms of how we deliver content, whether it's recorded, whether it's more on weekends or after hours and things of that nature. And one thing that Scholas has done is build out an entire alumni engagement department. So not only is there connection while you're in the cohort, but we have extra training for you after the cohort. So I really just see this expanding as we move forward in the next 5 to 10 years.
Which you can't automate away is those relationships in that network, right? And that's not something that AI is going to ever replace, because you need to build those relationships for people to help guide you and get to the right place. I've dealt with some graduates from, your programs, and they're like, hey, I got a Shopify interview. I need interview prep, right? I'm like, here's a great mentor that'll help you prepare for your interview and help you get set up, and they'll kind of give you a heads up on like what questions that you might be asked. In some of what I'm seeing in my space, and some of the clients that are reaching out to me like, hey, do you have talent for this and talent for that, has been less around software development and app design, and it's been more lately around like 3D assets. They're like, hey, I need this object created. Do you know anybody that knows 3D design? Do you know anybody that knows how to make NFTs? Do you know how to, anyone that knows no code? So no code, where at first people just thought it was like a shortcut to get around learning how to code, now has become like a rapid prototyping skill. We're like, we need a no code specialist to just create this mock-up of this website or of this app, over the weekend in Bubble or in Webflow or in Adalo, something like that, that is more, front end. And obviously, yes, if you want to expand on that mock-up, then you're going to need real software engineers, people that understand API and the back end. But for presentations and pitches and quick turnarounds, they're like, hey, I just need someone in Bubble to just make this 4-page website. Does anyone know Bubble? So no code is definitely something to look at. It's just like a specialty skill that might be a way to get people's foot in the doors as well, too, at least at the freelance level. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate everyone's time, the work that you all are doing for this space. I know plenty of people that could really truly benefit from all of your training programs. I'm going to continue to do the work on my end to point not only aspiring students your way, but employers your way. For any employers looking to expand on their talent, not just for social impact, but just expanding their talent, period. They should be looking to you first. So thank you again for everyone's time, and everyone that's watching, please follow these 3 amazing organizations: the Knowledge House, Scholas, CTP, CUNY Tech Prep, check out the resources that they provide, sign up for their newsletters, and please, share this as these clips come out with any potential employers that are looking to expand on their talent development. And again, thank you everybody for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joel.